Jade Scott is an enthusiastic marketing and events professional, active advocate for uplifting and empowering people and environment. She has 8+ years of experience working across EMEA, APAC, and North America, producing and hosting events that facilitate the growth of 3 different industries: marketing, HR, and sustainability. At this time, she is leading the North American operations and the launching of Sustainability Masterclasses, a passion and business project with the intention of creating opportunities for corporations to achieve major environmental goals in a real effort to reverse climate change. She has also launched Clean Cities NYC, a growing page dedicated to resources and sharing sustainability related innovations, businesses, and events specifically in New York. Welcome to Eventus 365, the podcast that's all about corporate events and the magic behind the scenes. I'm your host, Yannick DaCosta, and I am excited to take you on a journey through the world of corporate events. But before we dive in, let's talk about the stress of creating marketing material for your events. We all know how tough it can be when deadlines are tight and resources are limited, but guess what? YKMD Visual Communications has got your back. Our design firm specializes in working with corporate event professionals just like you, and we're here to help take the stress out of creating stunning graphics for your event. Our team of expert designers can deliver custom brand-compliant designs in just 12 hours. So whether you need branding, signage, marketing materials, or anything else, YKMD's got you covered. Okay, now that that's done, let's start the show. Diving into it, Miss Jade Scott. Wait, is it Miss or Mrs.?
Miss.
Okay, Miss Jade Scott. I feel like that's like my first ever plug on this show. Like, she is single, guys. What was your inspiration for Clean Cities NYC?
Yeah, so Clean Cities came around a few years ago. It's really just kind of an idea at this moment. And I over the course of the past few years started getting quite an interest in sustainability and climate change, and kind of meeting people in that space. And I found that as a sort of member of society, there isn't a whole lot of information out there to help you understand how to navigate climate change or how to navigate sustainability within your community, within your society, within society. And so what I wanted to do was kind of do some of that research. And I know that a lot of people are doing great things in my community, in New York City, in different neighborhoods. There's people that are, have community gardens where you can go and compost. There are people who are hosting free events, or just people that are doing great things that I want to shout about, and really wanted to create a resource for anybody, to be able to access information that will help them, kind of to be more sustainable themselves, or help them learn, or, give them places where they can drop off clothes donations, or, just honest, authentic information, because it's something that I feel is greatly missing. And at the same time, everyone has a lot of kind of anxiety about climate change and sustainability, and I really just wanted to try and alleviate that and provide a resource where I'd be promoting all of those great things that are happening in our communities.
So I'm not even going to transition into the next logical question at this point, because I'm going to circle back to it with some other fun things. So before we actually started recording, we're just talking about me living in Jamaica. So yeah, immigrant life is hilarious. You're an immigrant, right? What has life been like for you in NYC? Tell me. Maybe I should know, do I really go spend months there or not?
Yeah. Oh, well, I love New York City. I think everyone that is sort of like a transplant has a love-hate relationship with it at times, because you're always, missing home, missing your culture, especially if you're coming from another country, but at the same time, you're feeling inspired and motivated to be in this, to be absorbing all of, especially in New York City, or meeting people from all across the world with fantastic backgrounds and thoughts. And it's been an absolutely wonderful journey. That's definitely inspired me to do lots of things that I have been doing over the last few years. And so, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, I've sort of started my career when I was 19. I didn't end up going to university or college. I know you something you spoke about on a previous podcast was sort of the idea of going to college to focus on the skills that you have and the interests that you have. And when I was 17, 18, 19, 17, 18, around that age, sort of doing further education, I really enjoyed writing. I was studying journalism and media and graphic design and psychology, and I loved all of these things. And I'm quite a creative person and have been since day one. But I just wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, and I didn't want to throw a whole bunch of money at college to do something that maybe I'll finish and be like, well, I didn't really want to do that in the end, which is a common thing, right? So I sort of finished my further education and was like, okay, I'm already working in a restaurant at this time. I have been for years, and thought I'm going to continue doing that. And I'm also going to try and see what's out there. I want to work. I just really wanted to actually work. I loved working in a restaurant, working with customers. My first sort of insight into events really started from working in a restaurant too, that would also host wedding receptions and things like that. So I found Masterclassing, this company that I work with now, and they hired me. They brought me on board to kind of run their events and marketing.
When did you start working with them? Because I feel like there was like a gap there. Like I was like,
yeah,
we went from the restaurant to like masterclassing. Like
yeah.
What happened? I feel like I got thrown off a cliff.
Yeah, so it really was. It was kind of as quick as that. I'd been working in a restaurant for years. I finished my further education, got my sort of credits for that, and I gave myself a year between to find work. And if I wasn't going to find work, then maybe I would focus more on university and college. And within that year, through funnily enough, through someone who was a local at the restaurant I went to, and who was also a business owner, sort of saw something in me and really wanted to help me get my sort of feet on the ground. And he then sort of passed my resume on to my now sort of boss, the Masterclassing company. Yeah. So
I was like, wait, how did we get here? Like, there's no,
yeah.
I was like, something, but like, this feels like, it almost feels like a fairy tale, like the event fairy tale.
Yeah, it certainly felt like that at times. And yeah, I mean, it worked out wonderfully because the company at the time, Masterclassing, were, very small, sort of. I think they'd been running for about 2 or 3 years before I came along. And they were facing certain challenges. I was sort of new to this career life and work life, but I was also very excited, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. And together we developed processes, we overcame challenges, we grew, we scaled, and that's was really wonderful to be a part of. We started hosting events in a handful of cities, and eventually, I was helping them to execute events across the Middle East, across Australia, across Europe, and sort of and developing communication plans and just making sure that we could grow and build and be proud of what it is that we're doing. And then I guess at some point I come from sort of a small town about 2 hours north of London, and I wanted the city life. Really enjoyed the diversity that you find at cities, the different people, like I mentioned earlier. And I sort of turned around to one of the co-founders and was like, hey, I'd love to move to London. And whilst I was doing multiple things within the organization, sort of like a jack of all trades, selling sponsorship was something that I had started doing sort of a year or so before I made the request to move to a city, and said, unless you want to do full-time selling sponsorship, not sure if we have something for you in London, because the events team was based sort of close to where I was living. However, one of our co-founders had moved to the States to sort of open up the operations in North America, grow a team in North America. And he said, we could really use having your skills, your insight in the US, actually. So, why don't we try and get you into New York City? I was like, twist my arm. Okay. I'm 22 years old at the time. You're going to move me to New York City? All right.
I'm like loving this origin story. So there are a couple of things we talked about, and like seriously, it literally feels like the Batman origin story. Like Bruce Wayne, his parents have left, and now he is found. Like, I'm loving it. So you touched on like a bunch of things that I kind of want to circle back to, right? So
yeah, please.
The first one, well, it's probably the second thing you said that like peaked up for me. You were talking about like enjoying like the diversity of like city life, right? And like the accent and all of that. Do you think that like diversity, equity, and inclusion should be considered when companies focus on sustainability? Or
absolutely.
Maybe okay. I was gonna say shouldn't they be separate issues, but okay, tell me why.
Yeah, sorry. So I definitely think they should be. They come hand in hand. I think that when it comes to climate change, people with a well-known fact that people coming from sort of marginalized communities end up experiencing the worst impact of climate change, and having conversations that include everyone and having representatives from different backgrounds and different areas of experience is really important to be able to grow a sustainable strategy. And so I mean, there's a book actually that I have called the Project Drawdown, which is an actual project that's become a book, which highlights different climate solutions, different sustainability solutions. And there's a whole chapter on there about people. And at the end of the day, you can't build something that's sustainable if it doesn't include everybody, and there needs to be a voice from all these different backgrounds. And that's kind of why, again, Clean Cities for me is sustainability events that I host with masterclassing are very in the corporate world, and it's about bringing sustainability solutions to these corporate leaders, to help encourage corporations to then implement sustainability strategies. But then with Clean Cities, it's going back to kind of that local effort, local work, like local nourishment, because sometimes corporates still have a long way to go, and are still working with the DEI and like making sure it is a conversation that's inclusive, and yeah, I think that it's extremely important. I think that we're still working. We still got a way to go to make sure that it is part of the conversation. But it's definitely, people are talking about DEI, and people are talking about how that is an important element of sustainability and getting where we want to be.
I kind of even want to challenge the thought, and I mean, just like put it in your back pocket for later. Like you don't even have to like defend it or anything. When thinking about just like DEI initiatives, and I'm completely guilty of it. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because someone kind of pointed it out to me was, it's not just like what you look like, right? Like it's also like, wheelchair access or colorblindness or like all these other things that differentiate people and create a different experience for them, like how to create environments that nurture like all of these different nuances to make it make sense, and like have people with these like different skills or different points of view like add to the overall experience of like humanity. Anyway, bit of a tangent.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think it's about being accessible and making sure that everyone has a voice at the end of the day, so that you can make decisions. I mean, obviously it's hard to, you're trying to, people say like you're trying to please everyone, but like it's actually taking action. So, and listening to different communities, different people, different people who have or haven't got access, and trying to align and provide that access.
Okay, so there was something else that you spoke about, which was like, just sponsorship, and like when you wanted to transition to the London office, they were like, oh, unless you want to do, sponsorship full time, this, that, and the third, that wouldn't work out. But like, how do you define event sponsorship?
Yeah. So nowadays I do work quite a lot with event sponsorship, and how I would define it is, I mean, it's a financial means. It supports the event financially and what you're doing financially. But really, what comes to mind for me when I think about defining event sponsorship is that it is partnering with companies who have a mutual sort of interest in the value of the event that you're trying to produce, and interest in the community that you're trying to bring together. And with that, you then end up working together to put on that event, and they bring some of the content, they bring some of their expertise, and they bring some of their sort of finesse to help create that experience that people are going to have.
So that's important then, right? Like event sponsorship.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What are like event sponsors like really looking for to make like a substantial financial contribution? Because I mean,
Yeah.
and it's nice to get like sponsors. It's like, okay, well, here's 2,500, here's 5,000, but like, when you want someone who can like really be like a name sponsor, like, okay, like 50,000, like 100,000, in order like to create like this amazing event experience, like what are they looking for?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends what kind of event you're trying to put on to begin with. If you're sort of looking at trade shows and conferences where you have different tiers, I would say having obviously conversations with the sponsors first to find out what are their goals, what are they trying to get from the event. For what I do with masterclassing, the sponsors that we have are looking to meet with relevant audiences, are looking to have meaningful conversations, are looking to kind of promote what they're doing in a way that really sets them up for success, that's showcasing their work, and at the same time having meaningful conversations. I find sometimes with bigger sort of trade shows that are exciting and have so many wonderful aspects and so many wonderful characteristics when it comes to business and corporate events, and trying to like further do business at these types of events, having something a little bit smaller, a little bit more intentional, can actually help you meet those goals. So in terms of kind of getting the sponsors to commit financially to the event, you've got to figure out exactly what is it they're looking for. Are they looking just to kind of get their logo on a piece of swag, or are they looking to sponsor a coffee hour, or are they looking to really make some meaningful relationships and potential new business? And that will then kind of help you determine sort of, first of all, like how much is this going to cost them? How involved are they going to be? And then continue that conversation accordingly.
So you feel like having a conversation with the sponsors is like the first thing to like prospecting them, or is it before that?
Well, I would say firstly, you want to take a look at the event that you're about to host, right? What's the topic? What's the theme? What is the value of the event that you're wanting to produce? Again, it depends on how you're going about it. You might be reaching out to a client to, maybe your clients are people that you produce events that they want on behalf of them, or maybe like with masterclassing, you are an events agency that says, here's this event format that we do regularly. Here's, these events that we have. Do you want to be a part of it? And so kind of speaking to the experience of the latter, there is definitely sort of opportunity to look at like what type of event are we hosting right now? Is it, within marketing? Is it within sustainability? Who are the companies that are most interested, or who are companies that are out there already talking about, sustainability, talking about renewable energy or waste management, and carbon capturing and all that kind of stuff. Doing your research to make sure you're reaching out to the right companies is very key. Kind of going back to that whole, do they align? Do the values align? Is the messaging right? So yeah, I would say obviously having that conversation is really important, but doing the research and making sure that you're reaching out to the right people, because also there's nothing more awkward than being like, oh, actually, this isn't going to work. So doing that research first and foremost, I would say is key when you're prospecting sponsors.
Can you, in that same vein, like I feel like you kind of just did, but like I feel like we're at the first part. Can you walk us through like an entire process, start to finish, of like landing a major corporate sponsor?
Yeah, so I guess the highlights for landing those sponsors, I would say that we've already talked about sort of doing your research and then making sure you've kind of got a good idea of who it is you want to be sponsoring that event. And then it's outreach, and you can use, tools like LinkedIn, Google, they're there at your beck and call. You can do outreach. We kind of have teams of people that help us with sort of researching and finding, ways to communicate with partners on our events. And then, you have that outreach, you have conversations, you have challenges that you're going to be faced with, you're going to get a lot of questions. If the person who is responsible for making the decisions on the sort of lead, if they're doing their job right, they're going to ask you a lot of questions, and they're going to, not give you a hard time, but they're going to make sure that you prove your work as well, So, being prepared to answer all kinds of difficult questions is definitely something that's a challenge. I find it a good challenge to have for sure, but it's something to, you're always going to get something come up where you're not sure, you weren't expecting that question, or you were not entirely sure how to respond. But being prepared to have a conversation, to answer questions is definitely part of that journey. And then you're going to be, sharing information about costs and expenses. You're going to be working to kind of iron out any kinks, what are the things that are restricted, or the things you can or can't do. With what I'm doing with masterclassing, I get it's kind of like here's the format, here's the setting, here's the scene, this is how you can participate. But depending on what kind of event you're working on, you may or may not have as much control. You might have a customer that wants to do a number of different things, from, hosting, like I said, kind of coffee hour coffees, or having any swag with branding and stuff on that. So you're going to have that conversation about what's going to be involved and how much it's going to cost. And then the entire experience for them, the entire conversation that you're having, how that goes, is definitely going to have an impact on how successful you are and whether you close that sponsor. I would say that timing is very important. Doesn't matter how good commercial sort of salesperson you are, if that company does not have budget at that time, or if their goals or focus isn't on events, they're not
closable.
Yeah, so timing is key, and I think it's definitely important. I have to remind myself this, oftentimes, to sort of don't get down on yourself if you've spent a lot of work and time having conversations and it just didn't work out. Timing is important. Obviously, right now the economy is all over the place, so the economy can impact how, if and when and who you're landing as sponsors, and so that presents a big challenge. Pandemics sometimes have something to do with it.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't shut down the whole world or anything,
So there are challenges that you're going to be faced with when it comes to landing these sponsors, but I would say that communication is key. Relevancy, absolutely. Again, make sure you understand like what the event, the message that's going to come from the event and who it's targeted at, so that you're hitting up the right people, because you don't want to be hitting up the wrong people that have no interest. It's not a valuable use of your time.
Yeah. That's no,
Yeah.
that's fair. I think those are actually all really good tips that people can like really, and some of them might seem like duh, but when you're in the trenches in the moment, and I know from my own experiences, sometimes you don't think about these things, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you need to be reminded, like, hey, relax, sis.
Yeah.
It wasn't closable. Like, oh my gosh, they're your target audience is not their target audience. So again, wasn't closable.
Yeah.
Like it was too hard of a sell in the first place. Um, so Jake, you've been with Masterclass for 9+ years, and I'm not gonna lie, there are other brands. Oh no, not Masterclass. Masterclass Sing. See,
Yeah.
see, I use. There are other brands out there that have similar names.
Yeah.
And could lead people to saying things like I just said. I want to beat my butt. But like you've been with Masterclassing for like 9+ years.
Yeah.
What is Masterclassing for people who like are just not familiar?
Yeah, so masterclassing is an events organization, and we often do get confused for masterclass, so don't worry about that at all. You're not the first, you certainly won't be the last.
Great, I'm here. I love it.
Exactly, I love that too. And so masterclassing is an events organization that started off originally sort of hosting these intimate events that really focus on conversations and relationship building within, first and foremost, the digital marketing space. So the founders kind of have a background in advertising and in events, and they kind of came together out of frustration for the kind of typical sort of big event conference and trade show style events. Sort of, I was alluding earlier to some of the challenges that you can, as a sponsor and as an attendee, you can be faced with at those larger events. And they kind of formulated this more intimate, more intentional event format that's really ensured that people who were attending could actually have conversations, could actually talk about the things that mattered the most to them, and that those who were sponsoring the events would actually meet the right people, the ones that they're trying, the decision makers of these companies. And so we created this format that is sort of like half days, roundtable focused. There's only a certain number of people in attendance. It's intimate, and it's, again, very intentional. We started off doing events we would have digital marketing masterclasses, content marketing masterclass, social marketing. So there would be a theme, and then, there would be 4 or 5 sponsors on that event who are sort of the experts based on that theme. So you'd have 4 or 5 digital marketing experts. That might be someone, a company that focuses on social media. It might be a company that focuses on programmatic or mobile marketing. We would diversify the content, and then the people that are attending these events, they're getting as much value from a half-day event as they would from a 2 or 3-day trade show, because we are giving them sort of these very digestible presentations that they can take notes, that are kind of high level, sort of, here are trends, here are things that are happening in this space right now. And then immediately afterwards, we're putting those experts in front of the attendees on these roundtables so that the attendees can all ask specific questions. And, I've been to a lot of events, not just the masterclassing ones, and there's always value in like having sort of roundtable discussions, having conversations, or being given a chance to actually speak one-on-one with someone that you're interested in, or someone that's in your area of work. And so anyway, so they kind of created this wonderful format, and over the past, I want to say 12 or 13 years now that the company's been sort of running, we've opened up the office in North America. We still host events all across the world. We're working with also senior leaders working at the world's largest brands who we source as keynote speakers, who come and share their story, who come and share the work that they've been doing. And so over time, I feel so lucky within sort of the organization and on my team that our co-founders are amazing at listening to the people that work for them. And so we've had people who had experience within HR and saw that there's a way for us to do the same kind of event format in the HR industry. And for myself, I, talking about like clean cities and my interest in sustainability and climate change, I spent a long time doing sort of courses at home. I'm a massive, massive advocate for education, even though I postponed my university stuff.
Self-education doesn't mean you had no education or not.
Exactly.
Really, like not going to college doesn't mean that you're not educated. It's just a different.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Too much.
Exactly. So yeah, I've been working a lot on sort of climate and sustainability and exploring that space. And I then kind of realized actually first of all, corporations really, really could do with more information and being put in front of these sustainability solutions that are out there. Like, I think this is going to be a great format for that space as well. So so now we're hosting these events in digital marketing and in HR and in sustainability and in IT. And who knows, I'm sure there's probably more to come in the future, but it works really well because we care about communication, about good communication. We care about the details, but at the same time, we're keeping it simple. I always, they say like less is more. And that's kind of how these events go. It's like, we're not throwing in we're not overcomplicating it. It's lean and efficient. And when we're talking to sponsors and working with sponsors, the goal is to kind of make their lives as easy as possible so that all they have to do is show up to the event, put on a good show, meet these people, and then we've got the rest. Because sometimes there's so many moving parts. And I know that every organization has a lot of work to do, and the marketing people that are working there, got a lot on their plate. So if we can make your life a little bit easier, then that's the goal. So yeah, and I've been working within the company in sort of different roles, predominantly doing, from the get-go, I was like an events and marketing manager. So I was doing a lot of logistics work and communication, developing strategies, executing those kind of communication plans, and also sort of helping to, establish a social media strategy, a content marketing strategy, and things like that. And then over time, like I mentioned, started delving into some more sort of selling sponsorship. Now I'm hosting events and have been hosting events as sort of the master of ceremonies for the last several years. And then when I moved to the US, I was kind of working alongside colleagues to kind of lead the US operations and stay in touch with the UK team to ensure there's consistency. And now where I'm at here is I'm sort of heading up the US events team as the director of events and operations here, sort of guiding our events team, listening to them, providing them the experience resources that I've had, and kind of giving them an opportunity to take that and make sure that we're putting on brilliant events. And at the same time, always looking for sort of opportunities to grow masterclassing in a, strategic, authentic way. And definitely focusing on the sustainability stuff. And I'm super excited about doing more of these sustainability masterclasses that we've been hosting.
I love that you were talking about the fact that your founders are open to kind of like listening to team members, and kind of like how those kind of like buckets of topics kind of came out, right? Because at first I was like, when I was looking, like, doing my own research, I was like, these topics though, I don't feel like they work, like they don't, like, they're not related. Like, I don't understand. But as you were like explaining it, I kind of understood, okay, there's a need for this information in like the corporate space, and you can utilize the same method that you were using, from a digital marketing information perspective with these other buckets. And so now I'm kind of like, okay, that makes more sense. Oh, by the way, shameless plug, because at one point when you were talking, I was like, if they need someone to talk about branding or design, like, I am your person. Like, I will get myself, and I will be in New York, or I could be anywhere in the world. So, let me know. I'm here. Feel free to introduce me to anyone. I'm here for all of it.
You got it.
I want to make a little transition. Although, yeah, you know what? I love the confirmation. I'm gonna hold you to it now. Um, so I'm gonna do like a shuck and jive and pivot to when I was like diving in and like scrolling through your LinkedIn and being like a little stalker. Um,
Yeah.
we were talking about hosting your first in-person sustainability masterclass post-COVID. Talking
Yeah.
about like what those feelings were. And yeah, I'm gonna just stop there.
Yeah. Yeah. So we launched the sustainability series right before, the same year as COVID came out. So we kind of had a schedule ready. We were like, okay, we're going to try this. And as I mentioned, this was kind of, it was sort of like my baby. And I worked with my team to kind of make sure that we were sensible in having this as an event series. And I was very passionate about it. So we had all these events planned out: New York, San Francisco, Chicago, where we were going to host these sustainability events and bring in all these fantastic brands from all those cities. Um, and then, of course, the world shut down. Thank the Lord for technology and virtual technology, because we probably wouldn't have survived the pandemic if it wasn't for virtual events. But we ended up launching our first sustainability events virtually, which went really well. People signed up, they showed up. And then we hosted our first in-person San Francisco Sustainability Masterclass last year. Last year we sort of started testing the waters with events in person again, and Sustainability San Francisco was one of those. There was a fear before, as we were bringing back these in-person events, that, are people going to show up? What does it look like now? Is what we're offering still of value? Of course it was. We had an amazing audience of people.
It's fair to ask those questions, right? Like,
yeah,
ask those
absolutely.
questions to figure out how you should move forward. So
exactly. I mean, it's exactly what you said. And so we're asking these questions, and you also, at the same time, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in what it is that you're offering and doing, and we do. And so we hosted this event in San Francisco. We had all the local brands, Uber, Google, guests, some of the local governmental organizations and colleges and stuff as well in attendance. And they put these sustainability directors and VPs of sustainability and operation and all that good stuff. They were all joining. It's free for them to attend. Whilst we don't, these events aren't open to the public, it's invite only. It's free for them to attend, again, trying to be accessible. And so it's free for them to attend. They're sort of sat on their round tables, and then we have our sponsors on the event, who are sort of renewable energy companies, waste management, carbon capturing, so on and so forth. And I just remember it feeling quite surreal. I think that when the presentations are over and we move into sort of some roundtable discussions, and you start hearing the room slowly getting louder and louder and louder, because everyone is having such brilliant conversation and everyone's really truly engaged in what they're talking about. And that's when you know this is going to work. People are having a really great time conversing. And then, at the end of that event, we hosted a happy hour at the same space that we were running the event at. And just a lot of people come back at the end of it saying how valuable this was for them, how much they learned, and they've met new partners, and they're just, they can't wait for us to come back to San Francisco again. And it just feels, it's a huge sense of achievement. And I think I personally care the most about empowering and building communities and doing what I can to help people have a great experience, like have a great time and make genuine connections. And again, relative specifically to sustainability, to climate change, to all of the surrounding topics. So to see that you've produced a sort of catalyst for these new conversations, for this involvement in this industry and sustainability, is really, really fulfilling. And
yeah,
of course,
it's honestly, It's definitely powerful. And I can only imagine like when you're the individual like actively involved in like leading that, like how gratifying it is. Even on the days where it's just like, oh my gosh, all these crazy things are happening.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and it's a big thanks to the team. Like the team that you work with is definitely
Oh no, it matters.
key. So key to making sure you stay sane throughout the process and making sure that the event works so well. So
no, it definitely matters. I just want to thank you, Jade, for chatting with me today. Before I let you go, though, you mentioned earlier the Broad Project Breakdown book. And I think that's a really great transition into my last question. And I only brought that up because I was like, yep, no, she can't use that one. But what is one book, blog, or magazine or podcast you recommend that event planners or marketers listen to or, access or learn or read or whatever it is to learn how to get those big event sponsors?
Yeah, so something specifically for like sponsorship, I am a big advocate for like communication, for communication in general. Good communication, good listening. And when I first started with masterclassing, I started reading a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah, I think it's very common. But I think especially if you're sort of new to the event industry, like I would highly recommend that book. It's not telling you how to sell sponsorship, but it's teaching you how to listen to people, and how to be a better communicator. And I think having good communication is transferable in so many ways. And it is also very, very key in sort of getting sponsorship and getting people on board with your project and what it is that you're producing. So definitely recommend that book if you haven't read it already. It's fun to read as well, and some of the stuff you can apply to your personal life as well. So I really, really enjoy that.
Well, thank you so much, Jade, for coming and chatting with me about sponsorship, sustainability, and telling me about like your real life, event career fairy tale. And hopefully we'll chat again. Hopefully I'll be on the stage, on a...
Yes, I'll be emailing you. We'll figure out if there's something we can do.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds good. All right. Thank you.
Love it. All right, Yannick, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll speak to you soon.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap for this episode of Eventus 365. We hope you enjoyed listening and learning something new today. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to help event professionals discover us. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and sign up for our newsletter for behind-the-scenes content and updates on upcoming events. If you have any suggestions for future topics or guests, or just want to say hello, you can reach us at info@eventus365.com. We love hearing from our listeners. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Eventus 365.